Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Lectern. I'm here with somebody who is a very deep friend, longstanding co-worker, co-laborer, co-creator, co-producer, co-practitioner, and somebody who has done what I most want to happen in the world with my work. He has taken it and integrated it in a very creative fashion with his own already independently existing work and given birth to something that I could not have possibly given birth to. And that is what a teacher most wants to see in the world done with their work. And so welcome, Ethan. It's great that you're here. Many people know you in this space. You run the Lectern. You do some of the Silk Road seminar stuff. You do other things with me. You do the Lectern Q&A. Like you're everywhere. You're going to be doing a course on the Lectern, but there might be somebody in Eastern Albania who doesn't know about you yet. So can you just say who you are? And what you want to talk about today, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's a little bit weird to do these because I talk to you on this platform. So it feels nice to kind of like come back and have this serve as a bit of a touchstone on the way in which your work has impacted mine, and I hope vice versa. We'll explore that a bit more. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Ethan. I wear quite a lot of hats. I'm primarily a researcher and a facilitator of transformative practices. And I work at the intersection of 4E cognitive science and actor training, which is a lot of where my background is from. And so over the past 10 years or so, I've developed a methodology or an ecology of practices really for transformative play called TIAMAT. Those of you who have seen like my first conversation with you in 2022.
Way back when, yeah.
Way back when my hair was much longer. Yeah. And it stands for the integrative approach and methodology of active transformation. And that's really coming to a sense of how do we practice participating deeply in the world with a sense of play. And most recently in the past, 3 years now, like your work has really found itself deeply embedded in the ecology of practices. It's given it so much rigor and a lot of space, actually. The rigor has not constrained it, but in a way that suffocates it, but allows it to actually flourish, and has given a lot of clarity to that work. And I suppose this is partially like a reflection on how that has occurred, but also like an investigation into, now as you step into this space for the Silk Road, really talking about the integration between science and spirituality.
Yeah.
Where that meets, and how do we practice that so that we don't get stuck on like just the theoretical level, which is very easy to do, but to live it, to embody it. Yeah.
And you've also brought a lot of your ongoing and growing experience and expertise of TIAMAT into the development of other practices. You played a central role in the development of the Socratic search space, which is a complementary practice to the dialectic and the dialogos. And you also have played a role in enhancing and refining DID in significant ways. So it's very much reciprocal. You should know that Ethan's also preparing to engage in, institutional academic research on this. He's going through some hoops right now to try and make that happen, and many of us are trying to get him through those hoops. I believe I'll be meeting your supervisor again more at length. Is that correct?
In 3 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 3 days. There we go.
Yeah.
So, supervisor for his PhD work. So I'll have to call him Doctor, say, soon. And I'll have to take a slightly, aristocratic tone with him because, he'll be properly imbued with a doctorate and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you need a British accent.
Yeah, a British
I'll work on that with you.
So, I guess the thing to do is to maybe do a bit of a snapshot, before and after. What was Tiamat like before you encountered my work? What were you already doing? And then I know when we first talked, you had already started to incorporate some of it. So there seems to be at least 3 cleanly available stages. There's sort of before meeting my work and the work I put you in contact with, like before Ecog-Hsieh. Then you had incorporated it somewhat before you met me. That's maybe stage 2. And then stage 3 is, our ongoing collaboration. And so what's been happening to Tiamat along those 3 stages? What was it like? And then how did you start to bring my work in? And then what happened when you and I could start working together? So take your time on each one, because each one is fairly rich, I imagine.
Yeah. So, before I met you, it was probably about from 2016 to 2020, I think, is when I first started watching Awakening.
Oh, there's the book, by the way.
Yeah, and that was like, to borrow Guy Sangstock's term, we were fumble fucking through quite a lot of this. I had started kind of with this impulse of going, okay, well, after drama school, like I want to start a lab and try and get at the ground of what performance practice is. That's not just instrumental. It's not just the toolkit.
Say a little bit more about what performance practice is, because people might just have a vague sense of what that is. Sorry to interrupt, but just because that's going to be a central thing, maybe explicate it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I was always in kind of like this actor training realm. So how do actors do what they do? How do they go on and do the 2 most difficult things that people have tried to do at the same time, which is walking and talking at the same time. And that's been really tough. But I was in drama school and it's like, okay, I get all of these sort of techniques that I can use, but I didn't get a sense of how they threaded together. So I really needed to figure out, like, all right, what is that? What's that through line? What's that coherent thread? And that led me to create sort of my own informal lab in school. And I was playing around with like folk practices, ritual storytelling, childhood games, things like that, right? That got to something deeper than a technique, so to speak. And so after I left drama school, I was traveling around Asia and doing traditional arts practice. So I'll take up traditional dance, singing, music, and also quite a lot of influence from what is happening in the more contemporary postmodern spaces. And I was trying to see, do these line up? Like, what is that?
Oh, could I ask you a question right there? Yeah. So it sounds like you were starting to open up the performance practice into having a much broader, perhaps, philosophical significance.
Yes, more general.
Right.
I was trying to see, like, okay, where is the layer where we have generalizability?
And that makes sense, right? Because performance, probably goes back to shamanism, and shamanism seems to be, central to human evolution. And I'm not going to repeat that argument that I've already done at length multiple times. And so looking for sort of, I mean, I always find it so fascinating, and we can come back to this. I was talking about this yesterday when I gave my talk at Cambridge, the way we find, music and language go together naturally in song, or music and gesture go together naturally in dance, and then pictures and language, and pictures and gestures, and language and gestures, and music and pictures. Like, it's like, why do we find, and we just find it natural that they all belong together. And I like, there's a possibility that somebody with your reflective astuteness could bring to bear on that and get us, performance could be an avenue by which people access that sort of deeper connectedness that is so. It's about the deep interweaving right back to the Upper Paleolithic between our humanness and that kind of creativity that only human beings generate. And so it strikes me. I mean, I don't want to take away from complimenting you. Not everybody that goes into acting does that. But one of the things I've noted about you is, like, increasingly, is you get a sense of the spiritual potential within performance.
And see, that's the thing that I want to say, is that I don't think it's conjectural. It's actually quite well documented that performance practice, as we understand it, whether you come from the dance world or you come from the theater world, you can trace that anthropologically all the way back to nature worship.
Yeah.
Right. So more animistic traditions. In fact, it's still very much alive today. In Indonesia, I've trained with masters who, for the most part, right, their performances, whether it's music or it's dance, and usually it's all of those aspects that you're naming put together, because we hadn't quite deconstructed it and separated,
exactly.
at least not in these traditions, right, have a distinctly social function, but they also have a spiritual orientation, right? So, and we've talked about this in some of the Lectern Q&As, and I think that, to my mind, right, when I think about performance, I don't think of it as an entertainment commercial endeavor or set of skill sets, right? I see it as a fundamentally spiritual project. And there is something right about that.
Yeah.
Even if one doesn't consider oneself an actor, right, in the sense that one is on stage at the National, the postmodern argument is that, everything is performance, which is, hang on, right? Otherwise, we need distinctions. But elements like pantomime or parody, right, or metaphor, the way that we use poetry in speech every day, right, the way it calls to us. When you go to an art gallery, right, there is a line of investigation that I think needs to be touched on, which is what I found in my lab, which is that, if I try and find the through line, I run into questions around knowing, being, and valuing.
Right.
And this is like really sort of where I want us to move towards in this conversation, because I need to pick your brain about it. You know, after knowing your work, it started to give me a philosophical framework, but also the scientific rigor to like ask these questions and inquire about knowing, being, valuing, as we move through the world. And ultimately what those are oriented towards. So I want to hold it there first. But you seem to have a thought.
No. I think that's excellent. I want to pick that up, and I think it overlaps with a lot of the discussions we have also been having about the imaginal and ritual. But I didn't want to totally lose the narrative for the people watching. So you're doing this, and you're taking it out. You're studying with a lot of masters, and you're starting to sense the spiritual depth and potential in this. And you're trying to find the through line through all the techniques to that more spiritual grounding. Now pick it up again. Then what happens?
Sure. So when COVID hit, right, I found myself in this position where it's like, okay, I've been a yoga practitioner for 17 years, right? So not quite Rick Rapetti level, but I wanted to take that more seriously. And since I had the time on my hands at that point, I thought I'd give that a more serious shot, because I had been thrown into the depths of nihilism that was really, really tough for me.
COVID did that to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it hit me fairly early on. And so I fortunately was, with the aid of my friends, able to step out of that and then take my spiritual practice more seriously. But I found myself falling into kind of the more pseudoscience, pseudo-spiritual realm, where things were like really messy for me. And there was this insatiable part of me that needed to go like, okay, wait, but hang on.
Yeah.
Like, are you bullshitting, folks? Like, is that...
Yeah.
That's one of the good things about training as an actor, is like I see things from another person's perspective, and I go, if I were them, I probably wouldn't believe it as much.
Yeah.
And so I crave this like more how do I say this, accountable way, right, to look at my claims, to be a little bit more rigorous. And that was when I did my master's, and my supervisor, Brandon Burns, really wonderful man. He works in applied theater. And he has this amazing Substack called The Philosophical Facilitator. And he introduced me to Socrates, right? And then, as usually happens, if somebody looks up Socrates on YouTube, they find you. So,
well, maybe that's one of the most important achievements of my life.
Yeah. And well deserved, actually. So, that introduced me to your work. And then I studied awakening quite religiously. And I sort of found, this will be perhaps like familiar to most folks, like, there's a vocabulary here to actually help explain what it is I'm doing. And it helped me to parse out kind of what was like a little bit more pseudoscience. Like I was able to parse out claims that were not necessarily plausible from ones that I could rely on. And I hold a certain degree of skepticism in proportion with like, okay, maybe let me just be a little bit more conservative, right? Like I want to lean on where I can be.
Right.
I can find the literature, I can look for that, and then help that to support, help use that to support my practices and what it is that we're doing. And then surprisingly, I think right before we had our first conversation, I had stumbled upon a framework of parsing out the practices, and they were metacognition, somatic awareness, or interoception, as I sort of indexed it that time, transjective rationality, and enactive imaginality. Wow. And I had a conversation with you, and you went, I just came back from Respond, and we came upon this thing called DIME.
Right.
Before you even spoke about it, that was the first time that I heard about it in that conversation. And that really confronted me with this like, independent convergence is a thing. And, that offered us a framework from which, I said, okay, I really want to take this more seriously. This is helpful to kind of parse out. And I fell into this problem where I thought that I could engineer knowing and being and valuing in a way that would work for everybody.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this problem.
Yeah. But was it the same for you, where it was like very transparent to you? Because I got very excited by that. I could make my mind map, and it was like, this is great.
Yeah,
right?
Very much.
Yeah. Nah. I don't want to do that anymore. So, but nonetheless, that was helpful for a time to be able to give me like pinpoints, to be able to say, okay, what do I need to study? What do I need to know? How does this work? But it wasn't how it worked in practice. And so when we met, for the first time live at Respond the following year, then something shifted. Something shifted there with regards to, what's the orientation towards the sacred? How does that come through? And that's where my practice, I think, dropped much deeper. I started to shift my attention away from, okay, how does this exercise work, and get into the nuts and bolts of that. Obviously, I'm still interested in that, but it was the other part that seemed to have floated up more to the surface around, okay, how does this work as a whole actually, and how does that actually impact someone's life? How does it impact my life? What does that do to me? And to sort of step out of the view from nowhere and into participation. And I think that's where you and I started really, I had to step forward and go like, hey, John, I want to have conversations with you and Taylor, and Chris, and I was still talking to Rick and Greg, right? Rick Rapetti, Greg Enriquez, and say, okay, how do we really make this rigorous, both like pedagogically viable, scientifically plausible, philosophically defensible? It needed that.
Yeah.
And, we talked for 6 months or something like that. And bless you and Taylor particularly, going through with me for 2-3 hours at a time, every single exercise in every single container, and tackling difficult questions, not just about the exercises, but about practice in general. Yeah.
And
so that's sort of the narrative.
Taylor's expertise was crucial. In fact, Taylor and I made a very good complementary pair. I mean, I have, of course, some expertise in practice, but I have much more of the cognitive science philosophical background. He doesn't have as much as that, but he has much more extensive experience and expertise in a lot of practices and running a lot of retreats and running a lot of intensives. And so I just want to give him credit also of how much he contributed to the way you were able to weave my work and your work together. So thank you, Taylor, for doing that. So maybe tell us now, like you've run multiple workshops for people. Tell us, maybe give us an idea how many, where, when, how many people are usually showing up, how long does it go? Give people a little bit of the travelogue of the Tiamat world.
That's a long travelogue.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because
well, I understand it's a very complex. I mean, I've been on the inside and seen it's very complex, but trying to give people at least a gentle gist. I've been doing this a lot. What kind of things are happening in the workshop, and then we can start bridging into your three central concerns by asking, how are people responding? What kind of transformations are they going through in the practice and also more long-term? And then that could perhaps lead us into these three issues around knowing, being, and valuing.
Yeah. I think that's a great track. So I'll follow you on that. So just to give sort of the rough numbers, in 2023, we started doing what I now call the Euro tour. I've just finished my third one. It's like this third one has been 15 containers in 3 months.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be a ballpark figure of around 200 people that have done it by now, at least the tier 1.
Yeah.
And one of the great things is that people come back. So the structure of Tiamat is that there's tier 1, which we call awakening to structures. Tier 2, which is anagoge through dynamics, and then tier 3, which is alchemy of states. And so when you do a tier 1, then you can step up to a tier 2 because there's far more capacity required for that. And then tier 3 is by invite only, because we need to be able to account for psychological health as well as capacities because it's long. And so we've done quite a number of containers over the past 3 years in different countries. We've done them in Taiwan. We've done them in Czech Republic. Has been very, very, very generous to us. We did one in Germany, in England, in London. We've done them in Indonesia, Japan as well. So there's a lot of people who have sort of touched on this. And so something that seems to have been quite consistent is folks, and this is across all these cultures, they start to be able to do a perspective shifting almost intuitively. So they would start coming in going like, I'm really pissed off at work, and it's like, I hate this, I'm really tired, I feel confused. But through the practices, especially when we do integration calls after the containers, they've named things like, I notice how angry I am with things.
So I just want to
do something different.
I want to put a pin in that before you, because I was privileged to work on the Toronto Wisdom Task Force, and we produced the consensus paper that has done quite well, academic publication on wisdom. And one of the central features of wisdom is perspectival metacognition, the ability to do, and that seems to be, what most researchers and theorists and philosophers and everything on wisdom, this seems to be a continuing sort of theme that comes up, this sort of perspectival metacognition. And I just wanted to point out how, if what you're doing is making it more intuitively natural for people to bring in the cognitive flexibility that is expressed as perspectival, shifting perspective, metacognition, aware of one's perspective taking and how one is inhabiting.
Yes.
That is already conducive towards making people wiser.
Well, thank you. I think that's one of the things which I've noticed as I've always named it as you have your embodied cognition, and then you have your metacognition, which is not thinking about thinking, it's knowing that you know.
Yeah.
Right? And what ends up happening is across tier 1, there is a kind of balancing that occurs where this doesn't overthrow the metacognition and oh no, now I'm just sort of I'm in what we call a motor storm.
Yeah.
But one is also not so detached from it that I'm completely abstract and I know what's going on and that. But this is where it's important to have even that metacognitive perspectival piece demanded a kind of a structure.
Yeah.
Right. To go, okay, what's actually happening here?
Yeah.
And that was really where the work has sort of moved itself into in quite an important way with what you're doing now. Whether it's philosophy of science or philosophy of religion and the Vervaeke as well. Yeah. So I wanted to offer that for you.
That's important, because I think that axis and the way you're bringing him to alignment and what you were doing is, I mean, for me, you were recapitulating Vellman's work on, you don't want to be a wanton. You don't want to just be caught up in this, this motor impulsivity of your embodiment. And you don't want to be Hamlet up here in your reflective metacognition, because both undermine agency. And so this is the other aspect. Wisdom isn't just some arcane, mental state. It is a mental awareness and presence that enhances your agency, your selfhood, and your personhood. And it sounds to me like you're giving people a very powerful way to go from theorizing about that to actually realizing it in a way that they can practice. And then it sounds to me like okay, once you get that axis, how does it orient you to what's going on right here? What's it like to be, that's the central question of perspectival knowing. What's it like to be in that axis oriented to this present situation right now? And so that's just gold right there. I mean, if all you were doing with people, you're doing way more, was that's already a powerful ritual. It's a because it's a powerful ritual, because it is going to transfer broadly and deeply to many domains of people's lives and enhance their agency, their selfhood, and their personhood. So you're making rituals.
Yeah, but can I add one thing, which is I want to make sure that is heard the right way, because it's what I'm talking about here is non-dual between the two. Yeah. So it's not switching into I'm now fully experiencing this is
it's stereoscopic.
The romantic one. Yes.
Yeah.
It's that I'm both in the world and witnessing, right? But I'm not lost in the view from nowhere or completely a wanton, right? Yeah. In fact, they are dialogical. They're talking to each other and going, okay, what's happening here? Because then what that does is I think it opens a door to ultimately what is a virtue orientation. Because if I can do this, well, guess what? There's a way in which I can use that to be incredibly manipulative and influential of people that I don't want to affront me, and I can control them. And it's no. That's why we need a virtue orientation,
right?
That calls that middle way into participation in the world.
Yeah, I remember when you first met me, one of the things you impressed me with was you saying, one of the problems with a lot of the methods and techniques of acting and performance is they don't address issues of virtue and character, and people get messed up when they're actors because they're taking on different orientations, different accesses to the world. They're empowered in certain ways, and they're disconnected. And you told me that a lot of people in the acting world, they can find this. Their mental health can be challenged. Their character often goes awry in significant ways. And you had a concern to no. like, as you just said, we're giving people a certain capacity, but we also have to give them a telos for that capacity. We have to give them, yes, but what is this capacity ultimately good for? And how can it help make you a good person? And so I think like what you did right there is exactly the case. I mean, Vellman proposes, sort of a Taoist flow state as what is a state that brings, and it sounds to me like people are frequently getting into something like that as well. Is because, and the reason I do that is because
it's reliable. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'll shut up in a sec. One of the things you and I talk about is virtuosity coupled to virtue and virtue coupled to virtuosity, where the epitome of virtuosity is the flow state and the epitome of virtue is wisdom. And so if we can get people in wise flow states with rituals that transfer that would be like a great gift that we could give people that is far beyond making them better at entertaining.
Yeah, in fact, when that happens, the entertainment value actually becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying to do is to say, okay, and I put this in my PhD proposal, so I'm showing my cards here. The bottom layer of that is building existential resilience.
Yes. Say a little bit more about what that is. Yeah, say a little bit more about what that is, Ethan.
Yeah, so existential resilience is the capacity to retain your agency in high states of arousal and conflict and dysregulation, right? So this came up largely around kind of in the Ukraine war scenario. That's where people start taking existential resilience very seriously, academically, because there was a concern that like, what happens in wartime is that people's agency drops off, right? Because they are constantly in states of conflict and uncertainty. And this propels itself even outside of the let's say the war-torn state, right? I don't mean geographical state, but like the embodied state.
Yeah, I got it.
And it becomes a kind of learned helplessness.
Yes.
For lack of a better term.
And
right?
also,
and what existential resilience allows you to do. Sorry, I'll finish my sentence.
Yeah,
and then
no,
I'll
sorry
pass
for interrupting.
Yeah. So what existential resilience does is that it allows one to have an awareness of what is happening while still developing the capacities to agentically navigate a conflict or difficulty, right, across time.
Yes, and so what I wanted to do is what you're doing with your hands is, for me, how I understand existential resilience, which maps, because it's part of the work that I've been doing with Arjun and Aurora on critiquing the meaning and life construct, is existential resilience is a measure of your ability to maintain meaning in life, good connectedness, ratio religio, in the face of serious challenge and problem that, right, is facing your personhood, your selfhood, and your agency. And I think this is important because I think our current construct, one of the 17,000 ways in which the current construct is very poor, meaning in life is just my personal preferences and that I have friends that I like, is that it's such a shallow notion, lacking in any connection to virtuosity, lacking in any connection to virtue, that it is disconnected from both existential resilience and existential excellence. Where resilience is the capacity to resist pathological loss. Excellence is, but can I enhance my agency? Can I enhance my selfhood? Can I enhance my personhood? And so I just want to say there's deep connections between what you're talking about here and the way I think we need to reflect more deeply on meaning in life. One of the things I think that pilgrimage is doing, I'm now thinking of pilgrimage, as you know, as a meta test for your ecology of practices, it's the way to stress test your meaning in life to make sure you cultivate a meaning in life that is capable of existential resilience. And so I just wanted to resonate on that just so much. This is what you do. You provoke me so much.
Yeah, well, I want to pick up on that. I want to provoke you further. So, I love that you bring in the meaning in life thing, because there's a way in which existential resilience can become isolationist.
Yes.
Right? So oh, I'm very resilient, therefore nothing can touch me.
The
right?
autonomous buffer self. Yeah, the autonomous buffer self. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, it calls the question, like, what's the normativity? You develop existential resilience for what? Right?
Yeah.
And that's the orientation towards eudaimonia. Like, what is the good life? Right? And so there is this sort of like the normativity that sits above the existential resilience. And then you can, maybe I'll add this in as like a graphic, but it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
What is that? And that piece in the middle, I think, is what the ecology of practices serves. It bridges existential resilience to the good life, and someone whom I found incredibly powerful for helping develop the pedagogical language, aside from you and Barratt, right, is Jung. Yes. And Jung is who I rely on deeply to bridge, I think, what is sort of in our current cultural zeitgeist and the how do I say, the awareness now of things like shadow and complexes, or kind of our pop psychology kind of space. I want people to have a touchstone of ideas or words that you might have heard that have permeated our grammar, but actually also to proportion that in a way that is commensurate and in deep dialogue with the best of our current science, and also our philosophy. And I think Jung, to me, he's a muse, and he's also one of my sages, right? Alongside Spinoza. Spinoza and Jung are very good to read together. Right? To develop the language. So it's really helping me to, like, say in tier 1, I give a lecture on what the ego is and the reformulation of the ego construct, what it does. And of course, some of the work that's gone into that from Anderson Todd, right? So I borrow a lot of his ideas as well. Kevin Liu, who is one of my supervisors and deep scholar of Jung, whom you'll meet on Wednesday or Thursday.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, they're really powerful arguments coming forward that I think, without throwing away what is already out there, can actually help to proportion Jung's ideas, but in a way that allows us to step onto a path together, without saying, oh no, he's wrong, and fragmenting that further. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So that's
I want to respond to that. This actually came up. We did the last lecture and discussion for the first part of Seeing God Again for the first time. So the first 8 weeks is done. Very, very positive response from virtually all the attendees, all the students. And in that, there's an idea I've been playing with, and for me, this resonates with the Vellman thing about neither wanton nor Hamlet. Because I was talking about Jung and Freud, and so I said, let's look at their central insights. Freud's central insight is where there was id, there is now ego. Jung's central insight is the unconscious is compensatory for the conscious mind. And then I said, well, look, what you've got is Freud is saying sometimes we're locked in the unconscious and we need the conscious mind to intervene and unlock us. And Jung is saying sometimes we're locked in our conscious mind and we need the unconscious. And if we could actually get an opponent processing between Freud and Jung, so we know sometimes the conscious mind has to intervene. And, Wilber did stuff on that, the pre-trans fallacy, right? Not everything in the unconscious is helping you, right? But also Jung, but the unconscious at times has to unlock the conscious mind because of the way it's getting locked in. And I wanted to know, for me, that's sort of like Freud is the reflective part, and Jung is the bottom up, right? Self-organization, and you're trying to get the Vellman thing between them. What do you think about? What do you think about that as an idea?
Well, the thing is, I have deep criticisms of Freud because I think that when you scale out his idea, it doesn't actually hold. And this is something that I've taken from some of your work on the philosophy of science. So I talk about this in my opening lecture for Tier 1, like Freud's hydraulic model of the psyche.
Yeah, that's
right?
Ricoeur's. That's Ricoeur's models. Yeah.
So there's id at the bottom, and then there's superego at the top, right? The id being your primal urges, your superego being sort of the social cultural thing, and your ego is in the middle getting squashed, right? So if there's too much pressure, it fractures and you're in psychosis. But if I scale out that idea, there's a bit of a problem for me, which I think I might have brought to you in passing. But the central question is, where's the person in that?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the ego is just being squashed between these two things, well, every person is being squashed like that.
Yeah.
So that means each individual is just part of the superego thing, and then they have the it pushing up against that. So where is the place of agency? Where is the place of personhood? How does that develop and open up? Whereas for me, I don't think Freud answers that question, but I think Jung does. And what Jung does with that is to say, hey, look, it's not a hydraulic model. It's an organic model. It's like a living thing, as you often say.
Yes.
Right? And so he deals with that there is a dialogical relationship between all of these little parts within the structure. Your complexes have a dialogical relationship with your ego, which has a relationship with your personal unconscious, which is impacted, and gives birth to shadow. And there's this whole network of things which to me is missing in Freud, because Freud doesn't, to me, answer the question of, well, how does the superego self-correct, right? How does the superego correct the ego? How does the id correct the ego? How are they in relationship? And so for me, I feel like, it's hard to get on the Freudian train, as brilliant as he was, right? And I don't want to throw away his insight, but I think that when it comes to the project of the self-correction of a person, when it comes to the process of participating deeply in the world, I don't find it tenable that personhood is not accounted for.
I think that's a very good critique, and I've made similar critiques along the way, and I've talked to Anderson about this. I'm trying. I guess. First of all, I agree with virtually everything you said. I'm trying to give what. I'm not trying to defend Freud comprehensively. I'm trying to say, what can we retain from Freud that's of value here? Because we want to be able to reach out to that side of the world as well.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is, and maybe this goes to Wilber's critique, right, is that one of the things that Freudian analysis can help you do is to pare away that stuff that's coming up from the unconscious. That is, and Jung even has this division between the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, where he's, I think, trying to give some recognition to Freud, where what's going on in our unconscious is undermining our agency rather than helping or healing. And the reason I like that idea is because I do think we are capable of a lot of unconscious parasitic processing. We get caught up in these patterns that are very much alive, like archetypes, but are not alive for our life. They're sucking life from us. And you need that. You need the kind of intervention that Freud talks about, where you're trying to bring, rational egoic reflection into that process to break it up. But I also see what Jung has to say, was saying, no. Sometimes you need insight. And insight is you have to open yourself up and let self-organizing processes well up in you to give you the kind of comprehensive insights you need. And so I guess I'm trying. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, but John, you just done it. You've just done it, right? So I think what we can retain from Freud is, yes, the conscious intervention. I'm not saying no to that, right?
Yeah.
And where I think Jung meets Freud is that Jung goes, yes, but don't identify with that.
Good point.
And this is the thing that Jung does, which you've implicitly said, is like, you have to do this thing, right? You have to allow the unconscious to show you things, and then what Freud does to go, okay, yes, and then you can be discerning around what you actually need to listen to, and what's not. And that needs to be housed within the normativity of the eudaimonia. So I think Freud and Jung have a tenuous history, but the influence that they each have on each other is at this point, right, quite fundamental. They're deeply dialogical in that way. Jung presupposes that you can consciously intervene on those processes. Otherwise, if we assume that to not be the case, then Jung would never have done active imagination.
That's a very good point. He is, and it was fair for him to assume that because of the prevalence and power of Freudianism at the time, that everybody had these skills and abilities. I think that is no longer the case. And secondly, I think Freud did not do enough about the proper re-education of the superego, which is a big part of the ancient project of eudaimonia. Oh yeah, okay, but I'm not going to leave my conscience and my character just as how my culture happened to give it to me. I'm going to actively intervene and reconstruct that and educate it in powerful ways. So I think both of them could use a little bit more Plato, perhaps, but because both of them read Plato, there's no doubt about that. So it's not unfair for me to bring that to bear. But I think I might have derailed us a little. I think this was powerful, but maybe bring it back. So you've got this thing you're doing, and you're getting people neither wanton nor Hamlet, and then not just giving you virtuosity, but orienting you towards eudaimonia. What's that middle piece look like? How is it getting the unconscious and the conscious to go this way? How is it getting the agent and the arena to go this way? You're doing all of this, and it's just like, okay, so pick it up again. What now? Say more.
Okay. But this is the thing that you do, right? It's like you toss out a ton of sticks, and now I'm going like, okay, I'm playing pick up sticks with things, and then trying to build a tower, which is a very active imagination endeavor. So here's the thing, right? Like when I think about, okay, this ultimately what is an opponent process between kind of like your consciousness and your unconscious. I don't use the term subconscious for many reasons.
Yeah, me too. I don't like that term.
Yeah, it's that actually you named it when we were workshopping Tiamat, which is that you called it, and I think rightly so, I've come around to be more and more convinced by this, which is that Tiamat is an Aristotelian character intervention process.
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you who might be unfamiliar, is that we have a personality disposition. So that's a dispositional baseline, right? And then what we're trying to do with ecologies of practice is to be able to develop the character traits that compensate for shortfalls in our personality. So
that's right.
If I'm particularly accommodating, I need to be able to learn how to share my wants in relationship, to be able to recognize when I have resistances, articulate boundaries in a way that's graceful, but then not so much that I'm isolated, right? And these are not skills, they're not instruments, they're not tools, they're developing the embodied motivational states that go, well, I might want to put up a boundary here, but actually, where's the place that this relationship would be best served? Right?
Oh, so you're kind of replacing an automaticity of personality dispositions, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism. You're replacing that with an opponent processing that is seeking an optimal grip on the world. Is that? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I can articulate this further. So there's this. We've talked about the active-passive kind of extreme, right? Like the active being this self-optimization. I'm going to do the self-help thing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to optimize myself on my own terms, right? By reading all of these things. Then on the other hand, there's the more sort of passive piece around, I'm just going to do therapy. I need someone else to help me fix my problems.
Right.
Which you've named both of them are a kind of egocentrism.
Yes.
And what we're trying to do in the middle is participation.
Yeah.
Deep participation in the world. Right? Because you run into that issue where, I call it the second full-time job. If doing your self-work is doing your inner work your shadow work, your deep work through breath work. It's like, there's so much work. It's too much work, right? But then on the other hand, being in the more sort of therapeutic space, it's like, oh, I'm just going to try this and just leave it up to the therapist to just, I trust them to know what they're doing, and then I'll just receive it, and that will magically make me feel better. No. Therapy is a participatory relationship, right? And at the same time, the self-optimization problem, it doesn't go anywhere. If you fill out your entire calendar with all the things that will optimize you, you'd have no time for anything meaningful in the world. And then it becomes an end in and of itself, right? One still has to live in the world properly. So I think what's happening with an ecology of practices is that it affords the capacity to proportion that and to go, okay, when do I need to actually receive something that's happening in the world at this point? And when do I need to actually step up and to be more agentic? Or let's say be more active. But both of those are homed in agentic participation in the world.
So people are doing this, and they're doing these very concrete dialogical practices or imaginal practices or movement practices, and you're bringing it into and you're integrating it with all your experience in how to get people into performance. And you're doing, and I mean this as a compliment to both sides. It's very much a religious framework, because religion is theater. And I mean that in a positive sense. It's serious play. You're talking to God, you're enacting Jesus, you're embodying him. For example, if you're going to a Christian church, there's all kinds of sounds, there's singing going on, there's choruses, there's response. It's theater. And many people have noted, and you did too, that, theater comes out of a religious context cross-culturally. And so what you're doing is you're sort of reverse engineering what we used to do, if I can put this in a powerful way, in a very concrete, interactive, participatory set of practices that people can deeply get into, like flow states about. They can open up, they can challenge each other. The best arena for flow state is another human being who's ratcheting up their skills as you're ratcheting up yours. Yeah. And so what happens with people in these practices? What are the kinds of things they say? How do they, what do they report is happening to them? Yeah, I know there's a lot. And we'll come back to it again and again and again, because we got 2 more of these. But I just want to, I want to get people also to get at least an initial foreshadowing feel of, okay, well, you're doing all this and it sounds all wonderful, but what is it doing to the people? What are they saying? I remember not that long ago, you and I were talking because you had run one workshop, and we were talking about, what happens when people sort of grow that witness sense, that sort of perspectival metacognition that, doesn't disappear and is constantly there, their philosophical conscience, and people were, well, what do I do and how do I live with that? And there was people asking me, sorry, I'm stealing your thunder. What happens to people?
Oh, well, let's share the thunder. So, one of the things which I've reliably heard, and this is bizarre even to me, it's almost magical. At the start of Tier 1, I always say, this is not a safe space. This is not a safe space because we're training, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be confronted, there's going to be conflict. And so it is not, safety is not given to you. What I hope that happens is that you come in, you develop capacities, and you find a way to be competent and to generate safety for yourself in the midst of arousal. And I make it very clear, at the start of containers, I always give out the objectives of that container, so people know that that's what we're gunning for. And I've reliably heard across containers in different countries, people with different cultures, in at least 3 different languages.
Different socioeconomic status, different genders, all of that stuff, yes,
all of that stuff. Somewhere in a container, they'll go, this is actually a really safe space because I can name how confused I am. I can sit in the ambiguity of what is about to happen. And I know that I might be dysregulated, but I always feel like I can do something. I can still be in the world. I'm not lost in it.
There's that resilience you were talking about.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
always have an agency of ratio religio available to me, no matter how ambiguous, novel, ill-defined, complex the situation is. That is a powerful realization for people.
And there's one more thing which is actually quite interesting. People reliably enter a flow state in these practices. So one of our nexus practices are exercises that we repeat throughout the container that we're always going to come back to, so that when you do auxiliary exercises that isolate a particular capacity, you can always come back into this nexus practice and try it out.
Right.
And it serves as a common touchstone. In one of our nexus practices called the playground, which also scales out, there is no context for how you need to behave in this place. It's completely emergent, right? But we are instead guiding folks into a place of epistemic vulnerability, where the rules of the world somehow are loosened up considerably, right? And we are encouraged to pay attention to what impulses are coming and arising for you. So I'm trying to make metacognition relevant, as opposed to saying, get out of your head or just be more in your body, right? So it's trying to develop that dialogical relationship. And then folks reliably go, like, I don't know why, like, I feel this impulse, but I recognize that I can't follow it, right? So they have that awareness that's occurring, that's self-corrective. And then when given a note or after a couple of instances of practice, they can go, oh, I feel it. Like I can be in it now, and they can report back to me what happened.
Right.
What happened there? Oh, this person said this, and then I did this, and I didn't quite know why, but I went with it, and then this is what occurred. And as opposed to being dissociated and then going, I don't know, it just all felt good. Like, no, they can report what actually happened in the environment at what time, and this is the kicker: they experience immense time dilation.
Right.
So what to them might feel like 10 minutes was actually like 20 minutes long or 25 minutes long.
Very powerful flow state. Yeah. Yes. And so do they experience these moments also as moments of enhanced, they're in the flow state, enhanced connection, enhanced presence, enhanced awareness, sense presence of other people, at one-ment, all that sort. But it's not just for fun. They're cultivating virtuosity and bringing that to virtue, and cultivating virtue and bringing that to virtuosity. So and we'll come back to all of this, because right now we're trying to do the overview. Do they later, like, because you said many of these people repeat, so they come back. When they come back, do they report to the degree to which they carried this into their life?
Yes. So after every container, we give about 2 weeks, and then we do like an integration call, which you're participated in, or we meet up. Ideally, we meet up in person. And it was really amazing. One of the participants from the previous container, she started her share by going like, I went to therapy after TIAMAT Tier 1. I mean, she had always been going to therapy, right? But she was like, I went into my therapist's office, and I held some regret that like, maybe I didn't participate fully. But then I realized that the reason why I did that was because I feel the need to be perfect all the time. Like I'm such a perfectionist, I need to do it correctly. And so me and my therapist are now working through that and where that came from.
Excellent.
And it enhances the therapeutic relationship. And then there was another participant who had issues with repressing emotions. The way that she had named it was, I have negative emotions that I don't want to hurt people with, so I push that down. After the container, on the last day, she came and she asked me, like, what do I do? Like, because I don't want to do this anymore. I can see how it's damaging my life and my relationships. But I also I'm not quite sure what the next step is. So what I did with her was I asked her, I said, how do you define what a positive emotion is and a negative emotion is? And we got into a little bit of a Socratic kind of salon with her. And I saw her 2 weeks later, just the other day, right? And she went, yeah. Well, she did two things. One is indeed. And indeed, what she did was she would just name, I feel so pissed off right now because I'm so confused. And I just want to be, but I still want to be here with all of you. And actually, when I say that, I feel glad, right? Like she can track that. But then she also named in the 2 weeks after Tiamat, what occurred for her was previously, because she's in a period of transition where she has to move countries and do a lot of things, that she would normally feel dysregulated and overwhelmed. But something that seems to happen for her now is she can automatically go, oh, how's this occurring for me? Ah, right, okay, I can take a pause. And then go back into it. And it's shifted the qualities of her relationships quite drastically.
Those are
which is really amazing.
And I just want to reinforce, I have talked, as Ethan said, to people on integration calls, and I can see this has a lot of bleed to it. It really, the Tiamat really bleeds into people's lives. So I want to just disabuse some people of a preconception they might be forming. Tiamat is not just for people who want to be professional actors, is it?
No, it's not. It's made to be general. It takes from actor training because I think there's a lot of the non-propositional, more ritual kind of pieces. So a lot of my work is far more embodied. We're on our feet a lot. We're moving around a lot. It's silly. It's fun. But it's serious play.
Yeah.
But it's not only for people who want to be career actors. In fact, I found in my containers, and this is why we offer it free for actors who have gone through drama school and are now working as career actors, or people who are still in drama school, right? That when there is a mix of people who want to be actors, and so they have a formed idea of what that looks like, usually commercial and entertaining, and people who are non-actors, who have a different orientation, however that might be, actually this is mutually beneficial. They learn a lot from each other. And I always feel very gratified when we have that mix of people in a room. Yeah. So I cut you off, but I want to support
No, you didn't cut me off at all. That's exactly what I wanted. So, I mean, and you and I both agreed this wasn't going to be a commercial for Tiamat. This was going to be a real lectern. And I think it has been. We're really, but I just want to say, I mean, at this point, I sound like an American. I just want to say, people often ask me after they do the work. For example, people going through Seeing God Again for the first time, people are saying, can the third course be more of a practicum? And it's like, well, yeah, no, sort of, but one of the things we should seriously think about is when people ask, well, what can I do next? Is to point them to Tiamat, and also to point them to what Taylor Barratt's doing on Awaken to Meaning. And you two are cross-pollinating all the time, with the Socratic Search Space, the Dialectic and Dialogues, Philosophical Fellowship, Socratic Imaginal, Self-Reflection, those sort of core practices. And so there are places where people can go who want to do the serious play, the serious practice, the ritual that turns what they might be learning philosophically and scientifically into a way of life. We can offer that to people. And of course, I'm very, very happy to be able to point people to you and Tiamat or Taylor and Awaken to Meaning, because I know both of you. I know your character. I know your expertise. I know your experience and the work you've done. So for many of you, what you like, well, what can I do with it? How can I do? It's like to do Tiamat, and you can do tier 1 and tier 2. And if you do it well, you can get invited into tier 3. You can be introduced to all kinds of different communities where you may find a home. This is a real opportunity of where to go. If you think my work has opened something for you and you want to go forward, Ethan has done, I keep saying I need artists and poets to take this and make it And Ethan has done that, but his poetry and his artistry is an ecology of practices that can help you turn all the philosophy into an ongoing way of life. So I recommend this. I strongly recommend it.
Thank you, John. That's very heartening. And to add to that also, after Tier 3, we've recently launched our Spire program, which is a facilitator training program.
Yeah.
And
say what the acronym means, Ethan, because you and I worked that out together, actually.
Yes. So, we had talked about DIME being domains of practice, and I articulated to John that Spire are the contexts in which you can stress test the ecology of practices. And so Spire stands for service. Yeah. Where are you in service, and it's almost an agapic orientation. Yeah. In that sense. Yeah. P stands for pilgrimage, which you have a lot of videos on now. Yeah. The meta-noetic passage, right? How it moves through different contexts, different cultures, different kinds of people, and how you as a participant move through those. There's inquiry, which is that's the I, right? And that sense of, okay, inquire deeply into oneself and into the world, right? The scantia intuitiva kind of orientation, that there is always something that is to be known, right? And as yet unknown. Ritual, which is the notion that one must transfer, be trained for transfer in domain general fashion. And E is for enlightenment, which is not the destination, but the process, right? The way in which reality itself unfolds to you. And so when you have service, pilgrimage, inquiry, ritual, enlightenment, we train these capacities and these contexts in the Spire program so that folks can ultimately lead these ecologies of practices, not just what I've made. And this is important, John, because it's not contained to me. I appreciate the compliment, but what I see for TIAMAT is that TIAMAT is a foundation, the version that I've made anyway, is a foundation that people can build on and grow from and add stuff. We were talking recently, not even jokingly, but very seriously about TIAMAT for kids, TIAMAT in nature, TIAMAT to address neurodivergence, TIAMAT in different languages, right? And so that there are people out there who are working in these spaces, who are responsible for the development of others, that I would love to see on these programs so that we can really research and jam something out and go, what's the best adaptation here? And for me, at least this Euro tour was the first Euro tour that we did with our first group of Spire aspirants. We call them aspirants.
That's great. Aspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. And my God, the one thing that it's taught me, which I've been desiring to learn for the longest time, is how much I can actually step back and lean into the expertise of my co-facilitators, right, to help refine practices. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things I'm really, really proud of, John. Like the TIAMAT that I did as far back as a year ago or 2 years ago now has adaptations and refinements which were brought into the fold by people who had seen problems which I didn't know were there. I'm like, I think this connection is missing. And how do we build that? How do we service participants better in those spaces? So it would be a dream to run a series of containers with you, with the whole aspirant team, with Taylor. I would love to at some point. One caveat is that, Taylor and I have talked at length, both about TIAMAT, about ATM's programming. He's worked on this with me. He's been such a brilliant collaborator.
He's just irreplaceable. Yeah.
Yes. And I would say at this point, the distinction is quite arbitrarily geographic. I work so much more in the EU and in Asia, and I don't want to take Taylor's pie, right? And Taylor services, so this North American
and we all were together in Toronto, you and Taylor and I running a retreat recently.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to be able to expand into, for folks to get a sense of, what's actually happening here transfers broadly, not just in my life, but also throughout the network of the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream.
Yeah, that is amazing. So next time, what I'd like to talk to you about is, because we keep touching it. I mean, we're bumping into the 4 ways of knowing a lot, and and then once we get to participation, that's where knowing and being are interwoven. And we could talk a little bit, perhaps, about how the logos shows up outside of speech, or beyond speech, and what's happening. And I also want to talk a little bit more to you. About how would people, like, how could they bridge between some of their existing practices and Tiamat? So, I imagine you've got quite a bit of experiences. Most people are, I imagine some people are coming in tabula rasa, right? But I imagine some people are coming in and, well, I have a meditation practice, or I've been doing this, or I do a Lectio Divina. And how do you, like, how does that work for them? So I think we'll move into that knowing and bridging and being next time. How does that sound for you?
I think that's great, and I would throw something in there. I think the boat that takes us across that would be sort of what I offer in Tier 1, which is the meta maps. So we call them meta maps as like a structure of guidance, right? A conceptual structure of guidance for knowing and being that actually collapses a lot of the dichotomies that you've been attacking in your courses.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about non-duality and the active collapsing of the dichotomies that has a real impact on people's phenomenological experience, and link that to Wynn's renewing the senses. That's what I really want to talk about next time.
Yes, and I have a small. It just occurred to me. I have a small correction that I need to make regarding what I said about ATM earlier. So please hear this the right way, everybody. Right? When I say that there are ways to participate in TMA and ways to participate in ATM, we don't offer our containers all the time because it's all very in person. We don't have online offerings yet. And it's not to say that just because you're in the EU that you can't go to ATM. No, please do. Yeah. I'm more speaking to like the in-person. If you want to meet an in-person practice and do stuff, and maybe not have to fly across a continent, right? I'm happy to receive folks who are in the EU, as I'm sure Taylor also runs in-person things in the NA region.
He does, and then ATM is also online. So we're trying to. We, meaning me and especially Taylor and Ethan, we're trying to build places where people can go to turn the philosophy into philosophia, a way of life. So, Ethan, I always like to give my interlocutors the last word. You're coming back for parts 2 and 3, but thank you so much. This was really powerful. Any last parting words?
I hope that when we speak again, the more that we say, the more silent we are.
That's always a good thing. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you very much, my friend.